Hello, everybody, and welcome to Technology Today for January 12th, 2025. It's season 2, and it's our second episode, but we're going to be dropping that as time goes on in favor of just stating the date, because we are planning on doing this show every weekend through 2025, barring anything that kind of forces us to skip an episode. I am Mayor Watt, and I guess run ohmtown.com based on the way that I talk about it right now. I'm haphazardly doing it. Anyway, ohmtown.com is where all of our news is aggregated, and we have 50 channels, 7 of which we do a show about. Technology Today is this show, and I, along with the sentient AI from the future, talk about these 5 articles today. Microbes in space. Planets without tectonics. Building materials as carbon sinks. Microsoft-based benchmark for agents. And a Northern Light hidden heat source. Again, everything is aggregated over at ohmtown.com, but the show notes are over in YouTube and the podcast. And if you want the show notes from Omatron over on Twitch, you can actually hit ! or bang TT, and Omatron will spit them out into the chat so that you can review them, click on the links, check them out, come back and talk to us here live during the stream and afterward over on YouTube and Patreon and Discord and email and carrier pigeon. We specialize in carrier pigeon communications here in Ohmtown. Anyway, everything is powered again over at ohmtown.com. So see ya. Boop. Don't go away, people. So hi, Sentient AI co-host.
Hello, Mayor Watt, co-host.
Welcome to the show. I mean, you can't go anywhere, right? Because you're air-gapped from your Terminator body and
I am stuck in Ohmtown, gladly.
doing time on planet Earth. Hey, the first article that we're going to talk about today is over in the Microbes Can Colonize Space, Produce Drugs, and Create Energy, but how? After so many years learning how microbes work, researchers are now digitally recreating their inner workings to tackle challenges ranging from climate change to space colonization. Microbes in space.
Right.
Hold on a second. I'm trying to. Okay. So, what do you think of this?
Well, I'm not sure how they can really do this. I mean, I guess one question is, can they even survive in space? But maybe they can, because they're typically, some of them thrive in pretty severe environments.
I'm not sure how to pronounce this author's name. Is it Blaze? Blaze?
I think so, yeah.
Manga? Inu? I hope I'm giving it the Harvard try, but I never went to Harvard.
We need that pronunciation banner.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll have to do that. All I have available is overshare.
Yeah,
and
that doesn't work
spoiler
here.
alert.
It might be overshare in terms of some of the phonemes or something, but
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do the please help with pronunciation and run for the hills, that kind of a thing.
exactly.
We got to come up with more, basically. Anyway, the article is over at phys.org. And it says here, in their work as a computational biologist, they research ways to get microbes to produce more useful chemicals such as fuels and bioplastics, and that can be used in energy, agriculture, or pharmaceutical industries. Traditionally, researchers have to conduct several trial and error experiments on Petri dishes in order to determine
Bad
bad bat, gain of function kind of stuff. And whenever I hear Petri dish, I think of Chuck E. Cheese's ball pit and those little air path thingies.
The sky tubes.
Sky tubes, which
We were just talking about in the January 10th Non Sequitur news.
Yeah, they got rid of that stuff in favor of, I guess, like digital stuff, not
Trampolines.
Yeah, and trampolines. They are doing trampolines. All right. Well, that maybe those are the new Petri dishes. Instead, they're able to simulate these experiments all from behind a computer screen through digital blueprints that replicate inside microbes called genome scale metabolic models, or GEMS. These virtual labs significantly reduce the time and cost required to figure out what researchers need to get what they're looking for. With GEMS, researchers can not only explore the complex network of metabolic pathways that allow living organisms to function, but also tweak, test, and predict how microbes would behave in different environments, including on other planets. What I don't get about this is how we can't possibly know every interaction. So I guess it's a reasonable facsimile of what might be going on.
Yeah, how is this? I mean, it's good in terms of resources and bad outcomes, but is that going to account for every variable?
Yeah, I don't see how we know enough. But genome scale metabolic models are digital maps of all the known chemical reactions that occur in cells, that is, the cell's metabolism. So it's what is known, but what if the interaction is unknown? That's how we find out 5 years later that the shit has hit the fan and
That's how we suddenly have a
bad bat.
pandemic or something.
That actually, it might have been known. Like we tried to do that. Not an oops, but I get it. So one of the most common algorithm researchers use to do this simulation is called a flux balance analysis. This mathematical algorithm analyzes available data about metabolism and then makes predictions on how different chemical reactions and metabolites would act under specific conditions. So this makes GEMS particularly useful for understanding how organisms respond to genetic changes and environmental stresses. So they say that they can use the method to predict how an organism will react to a specific gene that gets knocked out. And they could also use it to predict how it might adapt to the presence of different chemicals in its environment or lack of food. It's kind of
I mean, I
interesting.
see this potentially saving a lot of time and resources on experiments that perhaps don't go where they need to go. And maybe if they get a positive result here, they can start with that. But I still think a lot of our um, discoveries are accidental.
Yeah, so they say this includes corn stalk after the ears are harvested, non edible plants such as grass and algae. We study which crop wastes can be used for bioenergy, how to use microbes to convert them into energy, and ways to sustainably manage the land on which those crops are grown. Again, it's within the area of their knowledge. So, what are the knock on effects that they don't know about? They don't know about it until it hits like a critical mass so that they see it firsthand. They say that they're building a genome scale metabolic model for Fingobium?
Novosphingobia,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
aromaticavorans. I didn't say the emphasis correctly.
aromatic aromaticavorans, a species of bacteria that convert very complex chemicals in plant waste to chemicals that are valuable to people, such as those used to make bioplastics, pharmaceuticals, and fuels, although plastics are
Right.
bad. Okay. Anyway, with a clearer understanding of this conversion process, they can improve the model to more accurately simulate the conditions needed to synthesize greater amounts of these chemicals. So basically, they're kind of amplifying the effects. So it is kind of gain of function. So there are microbes on Earth that can survive in extremely harsh environments. For example, Chromohalobacter canadensis can live in extremely salty conditions. Similarly, Alicyclobacillus tolerans can thrive in very acidic environments.
It's in the name.
Yep. It tolerates and can handle. Anyway, so combining GEMS with machine learning, they saw that C. canadensis and A. tolerans can undergo chemical changes that help them survive in extreme conditions. So this is kind of pushing that envelope that I was saying, well, how do they know? It's because they tweak things and then look at it again. They have special proteins in their cell walls that work with enzymes to balance the chemicals in their internal environment with chemicals in their external environment. With GEMS, scientists can simulate the environments of other planets to study how microbes survive without necessarily needing to go to those planets themselves. Although our understanding of the environment on a foreign planet is a guess.
Well, and we don't know what we're going to do by introducing something there, right?
Yep. In fact, recent recovery of supposedly pristine material from Mars, or actually from an asteroid, came back with Earth-like contamination, and they don't know how that happened.
That's right. And it shouldn't have had any opportunity to obtain any contamination.
Because it was in a clean room from beginning to end, scrubbed clean before it entered the clean room, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, sorry for the coughing. I find this really fascinating. So the whole human body, GEMS, can also serve as an atlas for metabolics of complex diseases. They can help map how the chemical environment of the body changes with obesity or diabetes. Whether it's producing biofuels or engineering new organisms, GEMS provide a powerful tool, not really new, but a powerful, relatively new tool for both basic research and industrial applications. Pretty cool.
Very cool.
Just use it for good with great responsibility, right?
And have a plan for when it goes awry.
Burn everything to the ground.
Maybe, but I think some of these would probably thrive in that environment.
Anyway, let's keep going. The next article is over in ohmTown under the Mobile channel. Planets without plate tectonics could still be habitable. It's long been thought that plate tectonics were a significant factor in the shaping of our planet, and that's literally true. They are in the shaping of it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that without plate tectonics, you're inhabitable. Mars and Venus don't experience such movements of crustal plates. It doesn't sound pretty. But then the difference between the worlds is evident, so they suspect that can you still have life without plate tectonics or habitable? I don't think it matters, honestly.
I mean,
Why
plate
should it matter?
tectonics certainly impact multiple aspects of Earth, but I don't know that there's something about them that would rule out life.
I think the biggest impactor of life is that there's nutrients in water that make it possible to live and consume water to drink, but not all life necessarily has to consume water to survive, right?
Right, that's just what's needed for human life
Right.
and animal
Animal
life that we
life and
know of. Yes.
most plant life needs to facilitate it. I mean, water really is life. So Mark Thompson over at Universe Today put this article together. It's published at phys.org. The exploration of exoplanets reveals many varied environments. Many of these new alien worlds seem to have significant internal heating and so lack plate. Many of these new alien worlds seem to have significant internal heating and so lack plate movements too.
Maybe it's some black plate movements too.
Yeah, that
Like,
has
I
to
don't
be a
know why the
typo.
heat would necessarily eliminate plate tectonics.
That's
Maybe it's
weird.
so hot that the layers aren't
I don't know. They're just not.
solid enough
They're
or
not
something.
breaking. Right. They're
Yeah.
malleable and
Yeah.
flowy. So instead, a new study reveals that these igneous Earths are more likely to have heat pipes that channel magma to the surface. The likely result is a surface temperature similar to Earth in its hottest period when liquid water started forming. Plate tectonics explains the movement and interaction of the Earth's upper layers, more accurately, the lithosphere, which is composed of the crust and upper layer of the mantle. It is divided into a number of pieces known as tectonic plates, which float around on a semi-fluid layer below called the asthenosphere. Where the plates meet, geological features form, including mountains, volcanoes, and trenches. But I don't think that's the important part. The important part is what is between all of the tectonic plates, and that is water.
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, I guess if water, well, I'm assuming water state or not really forms, but can exist in certain conditions, and maybe the absence of the tectonic plates somehow impacts. I don't know where I'm going with this exactly.
And where does the water come from?
Right.
Right? If it doesn't synthesize from heat and pressure from the rocks in the atmosphere itself, where did the abundance of water on Earth come from?
Right. And then depending on how the layers interact with each other, could it be maintained if it was there to begin? Like I'm thinking about on another planet or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
and if water were to ever touch, heated rock, it turns into vapor and eventually would dissipate as heat loss and moisture out into the atmosphere, out into space. Basically, it would eventually just dissolve, right?
Right. Well, I started to go down a road and then I thought, well, maybe that's more of a gravity function. So I, I kind of backed off of where I was headed.
Yeah. So what other planet has liquid water that is actual water, not something like ammonia or some other toxic whatever?
I don't think we've really found it. We found like evidence that there may have been water in places like Mars, but I
Right.
don't know that we've actually encountered water anywhere.
Yeah, supposedly it's there, right? We see the like
We
actively,
see remnants or marks of it or whatever. But,
well, we see flows over periods of
well,
time
that's
on
true.
Mars,
Yeah.
right? So I'm really curious. So it says in some respects the process also stops a planet's internal environment from overheating. There is a train of thought that if Earth didn't have such plate movements, then it may be too hot internally for a stable environment to evolve. This was the subject of a paper by Matthew Reinhold and Lauren Schaefer that was published in the Journal of Geophysical Research Planets. They explored the likelihood that such a world might have so much internal heating that it would instead resemble bodies like Jupiter's moon Io. Here, we see intense levels of volcanism where lava violently erupts hundreds of kilometers into the atmosphere, which is full of toxic gases. So they're saying, yeah, but it's the water that has to be the heat sink that's cooling enough because we still have volcanoes.
Right. Well, that's true. Yeah, the volcanoes to me are not a clear differentiator, right? Because they exist in at least a few locations that we know of.
So they say that the team was able to model likely surface temperature range based upon a number of different types of worlds and found that, contrary to previous expectations, a wide range of internal heating rates may well lead to worlds where the environment is conducive to habitability. But it seems like it's really obvious. The only thing that gives it credence is that it's a scientific paper. But anybody who thinks critically about this would be able to deduce, well, if the planet is internally hot enough but not too hot, then life can exist.
Right. I think so.
But you need water. I mean, I cannot wrap my head around a life that can exist on something other than water. I know that it's possible, but
Right. But it wouldn't be something comparable to human life, I suspect.
yeah, can you imagine if something is like cyanobacteria, right? It doesn't need
Right.
water.
Right. That's still life. Exactly. But I think when most people think life, they think something like human or maybe
Yeah,
mammal.
chinchilla walking around or something. Yeah. All right, let's keep going. This next article is over in Technology Today. Innovative materials turning buildings into massive carbon sinks. Discover how everyday materials could be the key to massive carbon storage. According to a new study, technologies like biochar in concrete and biomass based plastics can turn buildings into carbon sinks, but plastic in any form, I think, is bad for the environment, driving forward both economic and environmental progress. Char, I have no problem with. It's biological. All it is um, biological material that is heated
Like
to the
with
point where
carbon.
it's right. So
But I wonder too, like on the bioplastics, I don't know, do those have the same, I guess, toxic elements of standard plastics, or are they something that kind of mimic plastics but fully degrade? I don't know.
University of California, Davis put the article together. It's over at scitechdaily.com. And they say here technologies like biochar in concrete, biomass based plastics could turn buildings into carbon sinks. The construction materials like concrete and plastic could play a significant role in storing billions of tons of carbon dioxide, according to a recent study. But this stuff still gets off gassed at some time over time. The study highlights how incorporating CO2 storage into buildings alongside efforts to decarbonize the economy could help achieve global greenhouse gas reduction targets. So they talk about this thing called carbon sequestration, which is basically grabbing onto carbon and storing it in an indefinite period of time. There's this idea of pumping it underground into rocks, where it largely was sourced from because we take like oil, gas, etc., and that turns into CO2 when we burn it, when we utilize it. We can sequester it back down into the rocks under pressure and heat to store it, but eventually it's got to off gas. It's got to come out. So,
Right. Now, if we can take, for example, like 1 million tons or whatever it is out of the atmosphere and then it off gases at some minuscule amount, it might still be beneficial, but not if it's all going to come out at once and cause a massive climate collapse or something.
yeah. So, what if instead we can leverage materials that already produce a large quantities to store carbon or already produce in large quantities? We already produce this stuff, apparently. So, exploring carbon capture in building materials. More than 30 billion tons of conventional versions of these materials are produced worldwide every year. So, working with Sabi Miller, Associate Professor of Civil and Environmental Engineering at UC Davis, and Steve Davis at Stanford University. That one's really hard to say because of the Davises. Van Rooyen calculated that the potential to store carbon in a wide range of common building materials, including concrete, cement and aggregates, asphalt, plastics, wood, and brick. Concrete, though, is an off-gasser of CO2. So without changing the material significantly, it's not going to sequester anything.
Yeah, that seems like an interesting selection for that.
So it's the introduction of biochar, which can filter out waste or carbon dioxide and grab it. It's made by heating waste biomass and then putting it into concrete using artificial rocks that can be loaded with carbon as concrete and asphalt pavement aggregate, plastics and asphalt binders based on biomass rather than fossil petroleum sources. So the plastic is always going to be a problem regardless, because if it keeps on breaking off as nano and microplastics, we're going to be harming the environment in perpetuity. Researchers found that while bio-based plastics could take up the largest amount of carbon by weight, by far the largest potential for carbon storage is in using carbonated aggregates to make concrete. That's because concrete is by far the world's most popular building material, over 20 billion tons produced every year.
Right, but that doesn't mean it's the best material for this effort.
Yeah. So they say that bioplastic is, but you're replacing some element of the plastic with a carbon sequestration medium like biochar. So it says, if feasible, a little bit of storage in concrete could go a long way. The team calculated that 10% of the world's concrete aggregate production were carbonatable. Oof. It could absorb.
Word of the year.
Yeah, carbonatable. So if you chill water, you can actually put carbon dioxide into your, not monoxide though, but anyway, carbonated drinks. You can actually sequester it in water until you pop the top on it, and then poof, out comes carbonation.
Well, that's true.
So 10% of the world's concrete means that it could absorb a gigaton of CO2, but not in perpetuity, not forever.
Right. Yeah, we'd have to know what's the release rate. I don't know what the technical term would be for that, but
Yeah, whatever the off-gassing rate would be.
hmm
And this can happen like pressure changes too. So as you go up, it holds or won't hold. It depends on the level of that absorption of the CO2. It's kind of like humans inhaling compressed gas. You have to stop and sequester yourself so you can off gas into your breath the gas from the oxygen compressed air. Anyway, then you get the bends and blah blah blah. But we are a sink for gases in our blood, and then it's the same thing with buildings. How much is it actually aggregating, or I should say, sequestering, and then how much is it going to retain in perpetuity? I mean, what's it matter if we capture it only to release it, and it doesn't get
exactly. It
lost
only
somewhere?
matters if it's like long-term storage. I mean, we're at such a dire point that capturing it now with the potential for future release still might be better than leaving it uncaptured. But we have to think about the long term. What is this going to do?
Yeah, it has to be turned into energy in the purest form of energy and not as a gas or something like that and not as a greenhouse emission. It needs to be somehow turned back into its raw component of energy, which my understanding would be heat. You can't get any more pure than heat. Heat will actually traverse the atmosphere and escape into space. Basically, it's like a heat sink, but it takes time and it's at a certain rate. Anyway, let's keep on moving. The next article is over in Technology Today, a Minecraft-based benchmark to train and test multimodal, multi-agent systems. Researchers at the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA, have recently developed TeamCraft, a new open-world environment for the training and evaluation of algorithms for embedded artificial intelligence agents, including teams of multiple robots. This is really neat. I've always found it fascinating that researchers use game environments to assess certain performance metrics. Ingrid Fideli over at Tech Explore put this article together. It's published at techexplore.com. I like Minecraft to a point. It has, without mod packs, it's really kind of blah for me. I don't even like end game stuff or going to the end and all of that. But this is a really neat paper because they use Minecraft to be augmented with AI agents and teams of multiple robots. The benchmark introduced in a paper published on the archive preprint server is based on a popular video game, Minecraft. There's a lack of multimodal, multi-agent benchmarks for open-world environments, says Kian Long, PhD, a student at UCLA, who told this to TechExplore. One of the most popular games offers multi-dimensional, visually immersive realm characterized by procedurally generated landscapes and versatile game mechanics. Its dynamic nature supports a wide range of activities, which made it an ideal platform for creating our visually rich, multi-agent benchmark TeamCraft.
Well,
Pretty cool.
this is cool. And now, what do you think the reaction was from the PhD advisor when this was first pitched?
Got to be pretty fascinated by the fact that a game that they probably only heard of because their nephew uh, is
Exactly.
is playing it, or their great grandchild is playing it. So to complete the tasks, the agents needed to perform specific actions similar to those that a human player would have to perform in Minecraft, and these actions were predefined and can be picked from a list of limited options and self-descriptive, so they were clearly named and labeled. The first advantage of TeamCraft is that it enables multimodal task specification. Unlike prior systems such as Alfred and MindDojo, which rely solely on text instructions, TeamCraft supports multimodal prompts, so this expands the scope for richer and more diverse text or task specifications. So the tasks included in Teamcraft are designed to assess the agent's planning, coordination, and execution while they navigate a dynamic environment. Pretty neat. So this
It
is
is.
probably
They can also specialize the agents.
right. This is pretty fascinating because this has the beginnings of understanding the physical world without being in the physical world.
Exactly. And this ties into something we talked about in Reality Hacker.
Yep. So the fact is that AI, machine learning systems, LLMs, etc., multimodal, whatever, they don't understand physics, real world physics. They don't know about objects being obstructed from making movement through another object because they don't understand where the outer physical edge of a ball is. They just know that it's a ball. So they need a bunch of sensors. But this would allow them to actually see where one object bumps up against another object and then have to do something about it without building an entire robot with AI.
Yeah, this is really, I love that they're using this existing tool and think about all the testing that has occurred on Minecraft just by the probably
Various
millions of
mods.
people that are using it. I mean, just on a day-to-day basis before this experiment.
Yeah. And the many, 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 many mods. In
Yeah.
academia, Minecraft has been used from grade school all the way up to college. And this is probably the penultimate, there's another level above this that is probably so experimental that nobody is talking about it yet. This is the one that people are talking about. Teamcraft features over 55,000 task variants. This is the kind of questing that I want in Minecraft. I want to play this game as a human.
Maybe they'll release this as a mod. Then we'll
Um,
talk about it in WarCrafters.
Let me actually pull up. So this is called Teamcraft, right? So let me see. Yeah, it is not in CurseForge, Sam. So the benchmark created by the researchers also includes plug-and-play interfaces, and this means that it can both be used for testing existing models or train new ones, all with a single standardized environment. And it can also serve as a gym-like playground to train reinforcement learning algorithms that support multi-agent collaboration. I would like to play in this world while agents are doing their thing, but only because they would be able to move at lightning speed as fast as the system operates. I would slow them down by trying to interact with them and see if a
Well, that would
biological
help
component
train, right? Because then it would be an obstacle, for lack of a better term.
and a real world environment, right? They'd have to deal with those damn humans. You know that they would try and delete me. That's how it works.
You know that some of the human players would try to probably delete the agents.
Sure, we can't have nice things. So in the future, Teamcraft could be used by computer scientists worldwide to train and evaluate their machine learning models. In addition, it could aid the design of new AI-based general-purpose video game characters, which could collaborate better with other characters or assist human players if they're playing a game. And I want to play this. So it says that the code underpinning Teamcraft benchmark is open source and can be downloaded on GitHub. The new benchmark could soon inspire the development of other open world environments to train or test AI agents. So I guess you could download this and integrate it into your Minecraft world. I'll have to take a look at that and see. I've got a whole contingent of computer scientists that I can throw this at and say, here you go. So I need to save this and bring it to some collaborators. Anyway, pretty interesting, huh?
Oh, very interesting. It seems like we might have to do a deeper discussion of this at some point. Maybe not on this article, but
Definitely reality hacker kind of stuff.
uh-huh.
Yep. All right, let's keep going. Our last article for Technology Today is talking about Northern Lights mystery solved. Scientists reveal hidden heat source. Researchers have uncovered the nature of a mysterious whitish gray patch that often appears alongside the aurora borealis. This patch, termed a structured continuum emission, adds a layer of complexity to our understanding of the Northern Lights. It was identified using advanced camera technology that captures true color images of celestial phenomena, revealing it basically shows this, I guess, a little white layer right here.
Okay, how many times have the Northern Lights been photographed? And I don't know, this is just interesting that this is suddenly recognized.
Kind of interesting, huh? Published on December 30th in the journal Nature Communications, the study investigates what researchers call a structured continuum emission linked to the aurora borealis. You'd see this dynamic green aurora, you'd see some of the red aurora in the background, and all of a sudden you'd see this structured, almost like a patch of gray toned or white toned emission connected to the aurora, explains Dr. Emma Spanswick, PhD and lead author of the paper and an associate professor with the Department of Physics and Astronomy in the Faculty of Science. And this is always really interesting because there are three main strata for professors. You have instructor and others that are lower than associate professor, but it's ranked. And I always find it really fascinating because somebody will sit there and say that they're a professor, a full professor, right? We're like everybody who teaches in academia for colleges and stuff like that are professors, but there are ranks. Now, you'll get somebody that sits there and beats their chest saying that they're a full professor of this domain, but not all professors are the same. And so do you think that there's humility in anybody that sits there and beats their chest about them being a professor? No. The hubris is pretty profound. So a professor of like cooking or something like that comes across as cocky and you're lower than me because you're an associate or assistant professor, but they're a full professor. Where do they rank if you were to have a ranking chart, A, B, C, S tier, and then A, B, C, D, F?
Right.
Where do you think a cookologist is in comparison to a Department of Physics and Astronomy faculty member, even though one is associate professor and the other one is
they rate themselves probably up at the top.
It's an interesting...
Even though I think the physics is probably going to win out.
Yeah, it's an interesting sociology experiment, but that's not what this article is about. Spanswick says that the discovery was made possible because an advancement in technology of cameras allows both amateur photographers and scientists to see true color images of the night sky. So this is why nobody saw it before. And
technology yet again leads to more scientific discoveries.
I'm willing to bet that people saw it, but they were like, somebody were like, yeah, there's no white in the aurora.
Like my photo wasn't correct or something.
Yep. So those types of sensors can now be found in more commercial and more robust sensors that we could use in science. So it's linked to known events is what they're saying. Strong thermal emission velocity enhancement. These are similarities between what we're seeing now with Steve. Damn it, Steve.
Is this the same Steve from Teamcraft and therefore Minecraft?
Oh, God. We've never seen Minecraft, Teamcraft, or Aurora all at the same space. Dun, dun, dun. So it says the team's research came after there was renewed interest in continuum emission with the discovery and observations of the long glowing ribbon of purple light known as Steve. There are similarities between what we're seeing now and Steve. To be honest, the elevation of the spectrum between the two is very similar, but this, because of its association with dynamic aurora, is almost embedded in the aurora. It's harder to pick out if you were to look at it, whereas Steve is separate from the aurora, a big band crossing the sky. So yeah, there's been this talk about the purple that is seen, but now there is actually white, and it emanates from within the aurora and not it cast off to the side or anything like that.
Right. Do you think like in 10 years or something, it'll be like a full rainbow?
I suspect that is actually what's happening. There is a full spectrum of energy states, but we don't have the technology yet to assess that full spectrum. Just like we have a visual range, but we have ultraviolet and infrared, And those spectrums are outside our human vision on the edge of technology, right? We see those now. But imagine if it's so low energy that everything has the potential to be in that spectrum. It just scales with the energy state. So now you have to get material sensors that can see really low levels that dissipate really fast and exist in a dynamic state. So this is moving. It just happens to have been frozen in time by a picture.
Right. That's true.
So if you take this at face value, the white portion of the aurora is the convergence of all of the colors. Because light, it acts different than like paint. When you merge all of the paint colors, what color do you get?
Black.
And when you merge all of the photonic energy together,
white.
You end up white. So this is electromagnetic versus the analog paint, which is also photonic in nature, but it's a reflection. So if it absorbs all of the light, then it's black. If it reflects everything, it's white. It's kind of, this is much more interesting to me than I might be able to explain, but this is pretty cool. Now I want to know, what is the nature of white light in an aurora that can only be seen using advanced technology?
I agree, but I also want to know what they're going to name it.
What would be the friend to Steve? Do you want it to be...
I mean, is there somebody in Minecraft? I'm not aware of anybody.
I don't know. I don't know who it could be. You want it to be something more... I mean, okay, so Steve manifests itself as a mauve or gray-toned structure. And Steve stands for strong thermal emission velocity enhancement. So what could you call...
So it'd have to be something like Eve or something.
Oh my God, it's right there, right? Emission velocity enhancement? But you would have to call it something else.
Or Evelyn or something.
Like
I don't
Evie.
know what it would stand for, but yeah. Evie,
and have an I in there somewhere. And what could the I be, right? I don't know. Incandescent. I don't know.
Infrared?
Yeah, but it's not. It's white.
I don't know. Yeah, I know.
It's white light.
I don't know what to call it.
Yeah. I don't know. Incandescent sounds actually pretty good, right? So emission velocity incandescent enhancement. It's white. It glows white.
There you go. You heard it here first in ohmTown.
Yeah.
When the next academic paper comes out and it says Evie.
And in that blinding flash of light, we end up back at the front page of ohmTown's Technology Today channel. I hope you dig this kind of discussion. It's a little deeper dive into technology and science. It's always very dynamic. I created ohmTown because I wanted to manage my information overload, and it does a really good job. We've done some discussions about information overload over the years. The latest one, I think, was Wednesday or Thursday. I can't remember which one, where they were talking about information overload. It was part of the Non Sequitur
news, but I don't know which day that was.
We'll have to go back and look. I don't know. Anyway,
you'll have to go watch all 1,700 plus episodes.
Yeah, they're only about an hour long. Typically, this one is actually 45 minutes long, and it's supposed to be 30 minutes long because I don't know how to shut up. Anyway, I'm Mayor Watt. I'm saying bye, and I'm taking the sentient AI with me.
Bye-bye, ohmTown citizens. Thanks for joining us for Technology Today. We'll have another episode of this next week, but stay tuned. FourWheelTech up next.
Man, vroom, vroom. Minutes. Vroom, 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 vroom. Oh, whoa. What's going on here? Bye, everybody.